Well, great. We are now running even deeper into the AI rabbit hole of terrible news with a new weekly-ish update, it seems. There may be random indie developers making entire AI movies, Sora 2 making a loaded gun of easy animation work, or just the general theme of jobs being taken away, and just last week we got a new horrible factoid, as it looks like the one Jeffrey Katzenberg has given in his 2 cents, saying that AI is the future of animation. You know, Jeffrey Katzenberg, the founder of DreamWorks. Now, it's not as simple as DreamWorks are going now to make AI movies, but there certainly is more of an implication here that we're gonna dissect for what this means for the industry as a whole, and who's actually gonna be the executive to fire that loaded gun. So, if you've seen our recent coverage of the looming threat that is AI in the animation industry, you'll know that AI models have been getting better and better at a massively alarming rate. And while human work is still the norm now, there's been this growing cloud of AI slop that has been looming over the entire animation industry, and nobody is honestly safe. From small-scale, low-budget stuff to big money productions, it looks like we're gonna soon be entering a world with an animation industry that is entirely dominated by AI. Possibly. It's already starting to invest the production of low-budget kids animations, such as us previously talking about how Maya the Bee is a legacy IP that's just being turned into AI slop now. And now, according to Katzenberg, it's gonna be taking over the big leagues too. You know, the ones you'd kind of think would be slightly attuned to maybe not do that. Some of them doing lawsuits against AI themselves. Or so you'd at least hope. When he was asked during an interview about AI's impact on the creative class, I guess that's one way to phrase it, basically meaning artists, writers, filmmakers, and creators in general, he claimed it will have a profound effect on animation, and specifically that it will be used to reduce the cost of animated films by 90%. You know, by trimming out a lot of the human jobs. Katzenberg seems particularly optimistic towards AI models. He sees them as just a new creative tool, kind of like a brand new paintbrush, or like the printing press, or maybe more appropriately, like what digital technology was to the film industry. That's the simile we're going with here. But here's the thing though, all of these new tools created new jobs in the film industry. Visual effects jobs alone have skyrocketed in the 2000s. So I assume Katzenberg sees this as like a fancy new kind of animation software. The thing is though, no animation software promises to do your job for you. Then it gets you fired, sucks up to your boss, and steals your position in the company. It's less like a software, more like a co-worker. A toxic one at that. But old Katz here claims that AI is just the next step of technological innovation in storytelling, and that there's just so much opportunity around it to generate derivative works of others.
I think if you look at how media has been impacted in the last 10 years, what will happen in the next 10 years will be 10x as great.
Now, like, I get it. He was there for the birth of the modern 3D animation landscape. Before his time, that alone was unheard of. And I guess he views AI as the next step in just that evolution. He sees media as ever-changing, rapid switching formats, since he was part of the major changeover from traditional 2D to modern 3D animation. But there was a big difference between then and now, because new formats encouraged cutting-edge labor from cutting-edge humans. And AI, I mean, once the model gets to their end goal, the idea really is that movies just make themselves, right? The general progression is going to be that the AI slop will look less sloppy, and chances are it doesn't require a team of humans doing AI jobs to operate this AI machine. The AI is replacing 100% of it. That's the finale. No need for the labor of human creativity, no need for passion, and certainly nothing original, because the very nature of learned AI models is they are derivative of others' works. Just content. It's really depressing, especially to hear from an executive like this. Katzenberg seems to see AI as a way to make animation more accessible, as a tool for artists and storytellers who otherwise wouldn't have a way to tell their stories, which is a nice sentiment. Sure, I get it. But if companies are suddenly able to create without their workers, that means a whole industry is out of a job, trying to make their own startups and competing with each other. All the while, those who own pre-existing IP prosper on top. And that's kind of what the game would be, I would assume, with an AI animation industry. It's not about the stories you tell, it's about what characters you own to be able to tell them with. Although I guess technically that's not too far off from the sequel era slop we're in at the moment. But there are jobs. AI in the context of the animation industry is more likely to lead to consolidation of power and wealth rather than democratization that everyone seems to be trying to pitch it as. That is the trend with this sort of thing. I mean, hey, just look at the games industry for comparison. It is way easier to make a video game now than it ever has been before. And yet, we see the exact same thing happening over there. Katzenberg, though, despite his prediction, seems nostalgic for the good old days.
Well, the good old days when, you know, I made an animated movie. It took 500 artists 5 years to make a world-class animated movie.
And yet, even still,
I think it won't take 10% of that.
He's just throwing numbers out, but that is a grim prediction if true. And listen to his tone. He doesn't sound particularly happy about it. It feels more like this is less of a, this is a new technology and I'd love to see it used to cut costs, and more, this is how things are going to be. And while he still believes human creativity will be important to the process, even if a large part of it is done by AI, it's important to note that those are still human jobs. And AI experts have made it clear that they expect, and even sometimes want, AI to take all of them. And I'm not sure if the specific brand of human creativity he is calling for is really a win.
Prompting is in fact going to be a creative commodity.
Oh, I hate that. I refuse to accept that prompt artist will be a real job title of all the imaginary AI jobs there could be. Is it really the future for every animator who wants to stay relevant in this industry? Like, that's so dreadful to think about. Prompts. Now, that may just be what Jeffrey said, but how realistic is Katzenberg's prediction anyway? Assuming AI is only able to make the animation, but that storytelling must be delivered by the human, would that kind of thing actually catch on in the animation industry? Is it already happening? And will DreamWorks be using AI effective immediately? Well, a few things. Perhaps one of the biggest reliefs to hear in 2025 is the fact that Jeffrey Katzenberg may be the founder of DreamWorks, but he doesn't actually work at DreamWorks anymore. He was there for their most popular work, Shrek, Madagascar, Kung Fu Panda 4, and How to Train Your Dragon, and then he parted ways 9 years ago in 2016. A few years after which he launched the wonderfully doomed streaming platform Quibi. Remember that? If you don't remember it, you must be part of the reason why it lost over $1 billion. But while we can chuckle at this obvious technological failure now, it is also very relevant to point out with this topic, is that he was at the top of the industry, and he still has industry connections for sure. If he's already saying this stuff, it's bad for all of us and reflects how the entire industry is reacting. Because sure, all of these AI movie thoughts could have just been entirely from his own head. But this is also the kind of take that could have easily formed after talking with another high-profile animation industry person. Maybe the head of a studio, like he otherwise would have been, about how AI tools are going to be implemented at the workplace. Jeffrey's takes are pretty bold, but they could be also really grounded in reality if he was hearing about this stuff through the grapevine of animation studios he has connections to. And if he, the old DreamWorks exec, is thinking that way, then maybe every studio's exec is thinking this way. Which, I don't need to explain to you, is really, really bad. So you know what? Let's play a game of it. Assuming this take is at least partially reflected by someone else high up in the animation food chain, and it isn't just out of thin air, who would it be? Hey there, thank you for making it to the halfway mark of this video. Come subscribe if you haven't already for more AI animated news. I'm hoping it will slow down after this, but can't make any guarantees. Regardless, we'll keep up with it. So let's get back to the second half of Jeffrey Katzenberg. Did I keep calling him Burger? I might be calling him Burger in this video. Sorry about that. Out of every animation studio head, who would be the one, the suspect in the lineup, who also would want AI to take human jobs in their mainline studio that they are actively currently running? Let's start with the obvious suspect, DreamWorks. I would actually say, ironically enough, this is pretty unlikely. They put a warning that their movie is not to be used to train generative AI under the threat of legal action at the end of The Bad Guys 2, which is a nice gesture, but it's not like it's going to be stopping anyone. And while that doesn't rule out DreamWorks potentially adapting AI tools in the future, I do think it's representative of a little bit of how they're reacting to AI upon first impression. Sony Pictures, another contender for the suspect lineup, we also already know that they use AI to some extent in their work in a more hybrid fashion that hasn't replaced any humans yet. Instead, with examples like the Spider-Verse franchise, they use AI tools in order to streamline parts of the process. It doesn't replace animators, and it's not outright generative, it is an AI tool, which again, I think is acceptable. It's only helping to boost a real human do their human work. Similarly, Sony seems to be an absolute powerhouse on the animation field right now. I would be very shocked for them to take the full dive into generative and lose all of their goodwill. Although they don't have perfect goodwill, they do crunch their animators. So maybe in that sense they would consider it to make things less crunchy and cost-cutting. Plausible, I would see it more likely back in the emoji days. I like to think they wouldn't, but I don't think they are our most obvious contender. So moving on from there, the suspect I think we can most certainly scratch off the list, ironically, is probably from an unusual source. Because actually, our good guy in this scenario is the typical, usual, financing cost-cutter himself bad guy, Chris Meledandri, representing Illumination. Now, this studio has already made an outright anti-AI commercial in their slot for the Super Bowl recently. You know the one. It was the one with the minions making fun of it.
With artificial intelligence, the future is in good hands.
I don't know how it came to this, but I'm starting to actually love everything coming out of Illumination in a minute. But these guys are by far the most ethical players in the AI animation field right now. And their commitment to their partnership with Nintendo, who have also been pretty anti-AI as well, means that they probably are not shifting that stance on animation anytime soon. Especially with the new Mario Galaxy movie coming up. The question is whether in 10, 20 years, when every other studio is cutting costs and it's more normalized, would they do it then? Financially, it makes sense. Or maybe they'll be the kings of, we have maximum money, we'll do it only human. Against the grain. So let's move over to Disney instead. Disney had filed a lawsuit against generative AI company Midjourney jointly with Universal. But at the same time, they have also made it really clear that they were only really filing to protect their IP. If it's Disney themselves using AI, then Disney is really happy about it. In fact, Disney would likely want to cut down on the amount of money they spend on movies, especially after the whole Tron fiasco, and the Snow White fiasco, and the Wish fiasco, and the Strange World fiasco. You know, Disney isn't exactly in a great place right now, and it would make sense if they see AI as their way out of that. Similarly, they have used generative AI in some of their, at least, promotional tweets in the past, so it seems to be more of a, you can't do it to us, but we could do it to ourselves. So I'm gonna make the prediction, whether it's in 1 year time, 5 years time, or in 3 days after now. If I was to pick anyone in the executive lineup who would pick to make AI generative movies, whether it's a hybrid or whatever, we'll get there, I would harbor to guess Disney would be the type, because who is the most soulless really? When it comes to making the maximum profit, financially, I feel like Disney would be the type to bite that bullet. The question would be how the reaction would be to that fact. Because surely, if they actually made the jump and had an AI movie, are people really going to go and show up for that? Honestly, who knows? I suspect they'll probably trial it anyway, and then they'll cast Jared Leto in it for good measure. I mean, if anything, the fact that Disney still are running with Jared Leto is further proof that they don't care about much of the backlash. If he could be casted in Haunted Mansion, and then Tron, and rumored to be in Star Wars as well, and they have no issues with bringing his baggage everywhere with a second thought, then I have serious doubts that they wouldn't do the exact same thing for AI corner cutting. And in fact, It has already started, as it has been declared publicly that Disney and Pixar have reportedly been experimenting with AI technology. But don't worry, it's not fully the end of the world. What we actually have here is a resource that is their own machine learning website that documents a lot of their cutting-edge research. Now, a lot of this stuff that you see here is not exactly generative AI and goes way beyond the last 1 or 2 years. It's very much seeing all sorts of technological upgrades they've pushed the barrier with, whilst you can see some elements of generative stuff mixed in there, but I don't see it as quite the exact same thing. For example, Elemental actually specifically used neural network technology to build the fire in their animation toolkit. It was generative fire, but more like a physics engine kind of thing. That's clearly different, right? That's certainly a question for how things go, because whilst most of these executives are either a yay or a nay, the fact of the matter is as well, eventually each of them themselves will be replaced. Probably by a human executive, funny how that works out, and then it's a question of whether that executive will always pick the most obvious anti-AI stance. I think we can make a comfortable prediction of who's most likely to do it in the next 2 years. In 5 years, I think it might look a little bit more compromised, and by 25, I don't even want to think about it right now. And at the end of the day, Katzenberg has very much been on the wrong side of industry trends before, you know, Quibi, but he's also been part of the largest revolution in animation history before. So, take your pick. Either way, I just hope this interview doesn't give any big Hollywood CEOs any idea. But even then, I do think we have a say in all this. If an AI movie does get made by a mainline studio, the best thing you can do is vote with your wallet. We at least do have that power. Or pirate it. Oh, that probably works too. Pirates versus AI. I feel like there's something poetic about sci-fi versus old school. I don't know. Whether or not this AI replacement of creatives comes to pass truly may come down to the consumers. If we continue to consume generated content entirely by AI, or at least refuse to consume content egregiously created by AI in a way that harms the institution of human creativity, we might be able to hold back the tides. At least for a little while longer anyway. It's a little bit later than Halloween now, but boy is that a scary thought to think. For now though, my name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. Do tell me your thoughts on the Jeffrey Katzenberg interview. Who would you predict to be the studio head most likely to push us in that direction? And where do you think things go from here? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts and more. And I shall see you all in a little bit. Cheerio!